Looks like we are live on Instagram. Hello, hello. We are live on Facebook and YouTube as well. So welcome everybody. People are going to be joining here in a few seconds. Today is going to be our monthly live stream. We do these every single month. One of the co-founders hops on here, answers your questions about Carbon Diet Coach, about nutrition. If you don't know who I am, my name is Keith Kraker. I am a registered dietitian and co-founder of Carbon Diet Coach. So I'm going to be here answering your guys' questions today on this lovely Friday. Whatever questions you guys have about nutrition or the app, do leave them in the comments. If you're on Instagram, the best place to put them is in do the ask a question feature. Then I can pull it up on the screen for everybody to see which question I'm answering. YouTube, Facebook, throw them in the comments. I'll be able to pull them up on the screen as well. So we'll get started once we get a few questions here. Let's see. How is everybody doing on this lovely Friday? Let's see. No questions yet. Okay. So for those, I guess, let me ask a question. How many of you are current Carbon Diet Coach users? How many of you are using the app right now? And how many of you are not? And let me know in the comments if you use Carbon or if you're considering using Carbon. Let's see. Looks like we have one on IG. Okay. What's the lowest protein recommendation you would ever give? If as a dietitian, I mean, it really depends on the person's health conditions. Like if you have certain health conditions, you want to eat low protein. So like in those scenarios, I would definitely give a low protein target. But if you're a healthy individual and are looking to optimize your body composition, you do want to have a higher protein diet. Now, you don't need to go crazy overboard with the protein. It kind of scales with muscle mass as well as your physical activity. So if you are lifting weights and such, you're going to want to have more protein. But if you aren't super active, don't have a ton of muscle mass, you don't need a ton of protein. I can't really throw out specific numbers for you, but I can say that the Carbon Diet Coach app sets it for you based on your lean body mass. So it will set it at an optimal level. And then it will also set it a little higher if you're in a deficit to help preserve muscle mass. So as long as you're staying within the protein slider range, which you can find in settings and then diet preferences, as long as you're staying within that range, you're going to be eating an optimal amount of protein. That's really just like a preference range. So just set it where you prefer. And then you don't have to worry about, am I getting enough protein? Am I not getting enough protein? Let's see. Good question. We've got a few more here. Let's see. I enjoy running. All right, let me see if this all fits on here. I enjoy running and do it from a health standpoint. What's the best way to split up training if you want to do 3 runs and 3 full body workouts? Bear in mind, I'll be running and also squatting and training legs, so I could have an impact. So that's going to be tough, but it's certainly, you can like order things so that it's going to be as best as possible, where you have the least amount of interference. So running is going to provide like an interference effect to your weight training, and it can also like negatively impact your muscle growth if you're doing too much cardio. So trying to separate it as much as possible is going to be a good idea for you. So if you're able to separate it like by days, like put the most amount of days possible in between your leg session and your running sessions, that's going to be ideal. If you're doing 3 and 3, that makes it pretty difficult. I would do definitely maybe running like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then maybe do most of your upper body sessions like during the week, and then put your leg session on the weekend if you can. So then it's a little bit more away from your running. But I mean, 3 and 3 is going to be really hard. So just do what you can to put as many days as possible in between. If you can't, if you have to do like legs on a running day, just maybe do like a morning session of running, and then at night do your legs, or vice versa, just splitting it up like in between the day as well. But yeah, just try to split it up as much as possible. That's you're going to have to kind of experiment with it. Yeah, so sorry I can't give you a great answer there, but that's what I would do. Let's see. Okay. How can I gain minimal fat when in a bulk? So if you're trying to build muscle while staying as lean as possible, the things that you should do are try to gain weight as slow as possible, and then also provide your body with as much stimulus for building muscle that you can. So my recommendations go as slow as possible on the weight gain setting in carbon, or even go with like the reverse diet setting. It works a little bit differently than the weight gain. The weight gain setting in carbon is going to force you to gain a certain amount of weight each week. So if you have a goal set for yourself, like you want to reach a certain body weight by a certain date, or you want to kind of force your body to put on weight, then go with the weight gain setting. The reverse setting helps, like its main focus is to improve your metabolism and help optimize that. But you can also use it for, a building phase. It's just not going to force you to gain weight at a certain rate, but what it's going to do is it's going to constantly increase calories until you gain too much weight in a given week, and then it's going to hold it. So it still kind of gives the same effect, and you're going to be in a slight surplus at all times in the reverse setting, so that it's giving you the environment to build muscle. And then on the weight training side, you're going to have to make sure you're giving your body a reason to build muscle. If you're past the newbie stage of 6 months to a year of training, it's going to be quite hard to add more muscle at a noticeable amount. So you have to really focus on your training and make sure that you're doing the things that you need to in order to build muscle continually. So like making sure your training volume is going up, making sure you're putting more stress on your muscles and causing them to need to hypertrophy in response. So diet, go as slow as possible, but be in a slight surplus, and then training, make sure that's on point, and then that'll help you gain without getting too much body fat. So good question there. Let's see. I got a few on Facebook. Got to get to here. Okay. I know you're probably sick of diet break questions, but in a weight loss phase, and I'm about to diet break today, will it work if I just eat at maintenance for the week and then click non-compliant at the next check-in? Yeah, that should work fine. You shouldn't have to change your goals. There's many different ways to go about a diet break in carbon. We have some recommendations that are like a workaround before we introduce the trend weight feature. And you can also do it the way you're doing it, where you just eat, you look at what your estimated maintenance is, you just track and eat at that for a week. Don't do anything special with the coach, and then check in non-compliant. That could work as well. But if you're not familiar with the trend weight feature, it's an experimental feature that we released, but what it does is it estimates where your true weight is at. So like it's going to not really be affected by weight fluctuations near as much. So that can be a good thing to use if you incorporate diet breaks, because eating more carbs on that week, your weight's going to likely go up a little bit more, and it can be more fluctuating if you're doing diet breaks. Whereas the trend weight feature really helps smooth that out and gets rid of those fluctuations. So I would recommend giving trend weight a try as well. You just go to settings and then like experimental features and turn it on. But the way that you're thinking about doing a diet break can work too. All right. Let's see. If someone isn't looking to, oh wait, that one must have got deleted. Wait, I don't know. If someone isn't looking to change body composition, but is tracking food to determine food sensitivities, does the app help? Yeah, the app will still help because it has a food tracker built in where you can track your diet, but there are free food trackers that you can use instead to do that. So if you're not using the coaching features of Carbon and just using it as a tracker, I would suggest maybe going with one of those free options. But if you really want the guidance and the macro adjustments and the weekly check-ins, that's where Carbon is super beneficial. We include the food tracker for convenience, but users can still even use a different food tracker and really just use the coaching features of Carbon. So yes, it can work, but you don't necessarily have to do a paid app to have a food tracker. Although we feel like our food tracker is pretty great and a lot of people love it. So, I mean, that's up to you, but good question. So on the Carbon Diet Coach app, when you do your check-in, do you answer no if on average you eat less than your target macros, or only answer no if you go over your allotted? So there's this misconception. A lot of people think, oh, if I eat under, I'm okay and I'm still good. Under eating can be just as bad as overeating for your goals. So that's why we give target macro targets. They're targets you should aim to hit as close as possible. We have an acceptable range that is considered compliant. So when you go to check in, it'll show you if you are within the acceptable range, which we consider compliant. So if you are under it, that's non-compliant. If you're over it, that's non-compliant. Now everybody has their own definition of what they feel like is compliance for them. We're giving you what we think is best, but you can certainly do what you think is best for compliance. The app might not work how you want it to. So we really recommend trusting the process, but there are a lot of people that say, oh, it's a little too strict for me, or I'm gonna just make sure that I get X, they can do so. I do see a lot of people make amazing progress just following calories and protein, for example. Like you don't necessarily have to hit every single macro and make great progress. By far, the majority of your progress is going to be made hitting your calories and protein that we provide you. So for a lot of people, they think that's good enough. And it is good enough for a lot of people. If you have really strict goals, then that's where we recommend like, hey, maybe you should aim to hit all your macros. But, off the bat, I think getting started, getting consistent, and aiming for calories and protein can be completely fine. But you do have to make sure you're within that range that we consider compliant if you want to be compliant according to our definition. All right, let's go back to Facebook. Do you know if a diet break feature is being working on the app? That would be awesome. So with the experimental trend weight feature, a diet break feature isn't necessarily needed. All you need to do if you want to take a diet break, you just switch your app to maintenance and follow the recommendations. Once you don't want to take the diet break anymore, you switch your goal back to weight loss, and everything should work completely fine and be seamless. There shouldn't be any issues like we had in the past with weight fluctuations and people starting new goals with the experimental trend weight feature. So I highly suggest giving that a try. Especially if you're a person that does diet breaks or that experiences weight fluctuations, it's going to be very beneficial for you. So you can read more about it as well on our help center. Go to joincarbon.com/help and then search for trend weight in the help center, and there should be an article explaining, the overview of that. But right now, there doesn't seem to be a need for a specific diet break feature, but we listen to our users and observe how they're using the app and see where people are stumbling, and we will always improve the product if we find the need. So, but right now, I think the thing to give a try is the trend weight feature, see how that works out for diet breaks. And if you do have feedback on that, do send that to our support team. That feedback is super helpful for us to understand how the feature should be, adjusted or worked on, iterated on before we release it to everybody. So we would appreciate feedback on that. You can send feedback right in the app as well. There's a place to submit feedback for these experimental features. So yeah, that would be amazing if you could do that. Let's see. Okay. Seeing a few hearts come in on Instagram. Appreciate it. If you guys like these, do tap it, give us a bunch of hearts. It really helps us get out there, get in front of a few more eyeballs. So if you enjoy the Carbon app, or if you like these Q&As we do every month, be sure to give us some love. Let's see. Is it possible to copy self-created foods to someone else? Since my country doesn't have the database. Unfortunately not. We are thinking and trying to think about how we want to integrate sharing in the future. But right now, there's no way to share foods with other people. That's, a blessing and a curse. So when you have crowdsourced food databases, the blessing or the pro is like, there is a lot more entries that you can search for, but it's also a lot more inaccurate, and you have to be very careful with the things you track in it. That's the MyFitnessPal problem. They have huge food database, but like most of the time you find something, you have to verify that it's right. You have to go look up the actual information. So yeah, there's pros and cons to it, but we're trying to think about how we want to incorporate potentially sharing in the future, as well as like expanding our food database and making it better for our users. So more on that to come in the future. Let's see. No appetite following COVID. Non-compliant, below macros, but trying to lose weight. Should I change anything? No, I don't think you should change anything. Just keep your goal the same, and just check in, mark non-compliant. And once you get better and you have more of an appetite, then you will be able to mark compliant, and then the coach will pick up where it left off. So I wouldn't change anything. I would just keep rolling with it. Let's see. Switching to keto. If someone wanted to switch to keto, what are some reputable sources to figure out the basics, how to stay in ketosis, etc.? I'm a carbon diet coach user and I love it. Thank you. So like, I don't have a crazy in-depth keto experience. I've never done it myself. I don't know any great sources for you to help you figure things out. I mean, the basics are really out there. But I think finding potentially a dietitian in your area, or somebody that has the has the credentials or the knowledge in that area that can help you. If like from a practical standpoint, I think if you want to switch to keto, I would do it. You can do it. So you can do it either gradually or you can kind of rip the Band-Aid off and do it quickly. If you do it quickly, you're likely going to get into ketosis more quickly, and you're not going to feel like garbage for as long. The transition phase, like if your body's so used to metabolizing carbohydrates, the transition phase is going to be a little rough. And that's why some people just like try to get into ketosis as fast as possible. If you drag it out, there's like, you can feel like garbage. There's a thing called the keto flu, where you're like transitioning into ketosis, and it's usually no fun. So I would probably try to transition in more quickly. But then if you decide to go back to more of a balanced diet and have carbs again, transitioning out slowly is usually a good idea, because if you go from eating no carbs to eating a ton of carbs, you're going to feel like a whale. You're going to be so bloated and everything. So slowly transitioning out. But yeah, I mean, carbon will help handle the macro side of things with keto, and setting and adjusting your macros and all that stuff. It's going to help on that end. But the specifics of like, are you actually in ketosis and all these things, those things are left up to the user. But yeah, I would look for a reputable source in your area. Maybe look for a local dietitian that has experience with it. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. A question of mine was answered the other day of why this time at my lowest maintenance, it's been a struggle to figure out, but in the midst, I'm hungry, trying to sustain current weight and can't understand why, because maintenance has always been comfy time. Maintenance is really a moving target. It's going to change a lot, especially if you lose weight, like a significant amount of weight, your maintenance calories really are going to change. And any diet you do, your maintenance is going to change. All you can do is optimize what you have, given your current body composition, genetics, and all that stuff. So if you just did a weight loss phase and you didn't do a reverse diet, that could potentially be why there's some struggle with maintaining your goal weight. You never really gave your body a chance to recover from that diet. And so that's typically why we recommend reverse dieting after a weight loss phase, especially if you lose a significant amount of weight. It's usually a good idea to reverse diet to help recover your metabolism. So that's typically what I would recommend. You could give that a try, see if you're able to increase your calories while maintaining your goal weight. A lot of people are able to do that for quite a while before they notice any significant amount of weight gain come back. And so I would give that a try if you're struggling at your current maintenance. If you're in maintenance, training strength and hypertrophy 3 to 4 times a week, can you still gain muscle? Yes, you still can gain muscle. How much muscle you're going to be able to gain is so dependent on a ton of factors, like your genetics, like your training age, your diet. There's just so much around that. You can gain muscle, in a deficit. Some people are able to even gain muscle in a deficit. So it really depends on you, and all these factors. So it's hard to say. If you want to maximize muscle growth, though, you're going to want to be in a surplus. You don't have to be in a huge surplus, but you do want to be in a surplus. And so if your goal is maximizing your progress in terms of muscle growth, do that. If you're okay with having subpar muscle growth rates, and want to eat at maintenance and try to gain muscle, you can do that, and then see how things go. If you're noticing not much progress over time and you're kind of sticking at maintenance, you're not really noticing any changes, then it's a sign that you need to push your calories and give your body some more calories and protein to help build more muscle, and also focusing a lot on your training. So that's, a lot of muscle building comes down to your training, and people focus a lot on the diet side, but diet is really like diet just like allows you to build muscle, but really the stimulus and the reason for the muscle growth is coming from your training side. And so like the diet side, super easy, make sure you're eating enough protein, make sure you're not in a big deficit. Maybe if you want to, gain muscle in your experience, you want to be in surplus, but training is where you should focus most of your efforts and thoughts around building muscle, because that's what's going to be that stimulus for building. So yes, you can build muscle in a deficit, maintenance, surplus, but most people need to be in a surplus, given they are outside of the newbie kind of training age. All right. Okay. If running on a calorie surplus, so if you're in a surplus, should you care about glucose spikes after consuming simple carbs to minimize fat gain? So the amount of fat you gain is going to depend on, how much of a surplus you are in. It's not really dependent on the glucose spikes, because it's really that extra energy and calories that's going to go to body fat. So it's not really the glucose spikes that are going to cause more body fat. The problem is like simple carbs are very easy to eat and very easy to get a lot of calories in, which in turn provides more calories for your body, which means you're going to probably gain more body fat. So like if you equate calories across the board and you compared like two different diets, you're going to probably have the same amount of body fat gain if calories are equated. Now, from a health standpoint, being in a surplus, having a bunch of simple carbs, probably not the best thing from a health standpoint. It's void of nutrients. It's, spiking your blood sugar. This can lead to some metabolic issues. So like definitely not something I would like promote, like having a ton of simple carbs in a surplus. Like a little bit, it's going to be fine. Like I think moderation is key here. You don't have to be deathly afraid of sugar or anything like that. But if you're in a surplus and you're not burning it off, you do want to make sure you're balancing out your diet with nutrient dense foods as well. So don't go crazy overboard with the simple sugars, but don't be super afraid of them. Body fat, like I said, body fat wise, it's not going to really make a difference. So yeah, I like to live by like, the 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule in terms of my diet. So like, no matter what stage I'm in, I'm always kind of eating within these ratios, and, 80 to 90% of my diet is going to be made up of whole nutrient dense foods, the typical quote unquote healthy foods. The other 10 to 20% of calories in my diet, I leave as like discretionary calories, where I can eat whatever I want. I can go have candy. I can have pizza. I can have anything that I feel like having. And I feel like that's not super restrictive, where I feel like I'm depriving myself. Yet I'm still checking all my boxes in terms of health and, micronutrients and all these other things. So I like to recommend people follow like the 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule, where 80 to 90% of calories from whole nutrient dense foods, 10 to 20% discretionary calories. All right. What are your thoughts on metabolic conditioning and its effectiveness in aiding fat loss? This is a new idea for me. Just learned about it this morning. So I think metabolic conditioning, I believe that's where you try to train your body to metabolize things in a certain way. So like, for example, you would eat, like a higher fat diet to kind of train your body to really thrive and run on these fats more efficiently. And, vice versa with carbs and stuff. I think from a like performance standpoint, there's some usefulness in those strategies, especially if you're like, a competitive runner or something like that. Like really trying to work on these metabolic strategies can be beneficial. But in terms of like body composition, fat loss, fitness, those types of things in like the gym and that stuff, like I don't see too much benefit in metabolic conditioning. I think it's more useful on like the performance running side of things, but I'm not super well versed in that area, to be honest. Let's see. So let's see. Do you recommend the app for someone with inflammatory bowel disorder, I believe it is, IBD? Any adjustments necessary? A lot of that comes down to like what foods you're able to eat. And so that's going to work fine with Carbon because Carbon doesn't prescribe certain foods to eat. It'll prescribe macro targets, and then you're able to choose the foods that you enjoy that, are aligned with your health and goals and all that stuff for yourself. So Carbon's providing the macros, you provide the food that you eat to hit those macros. Now, if you find that carbs or something, for example, make things worse, you can go lower carb and Carbon. You can adjust those macro ratios to fit what you need. But if you have a health condition like that, I would definitely recommend you speak with your doctor on this before you begin using Carbon, just to get the go ahead on that. But yeah, it's providing macro targets, so you can choose the foods that work for you. Thank you for everything you do and put out for all of those to see and help people be the best they can possibly be mentally and physically. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right. Let's see if we got more on Facebook, YouTube. You're welcome, Cyrus. Can you share the latest insights about Carbon and the microbiome? I don't have a ton of insights there. Microbiome is fascinating and an area of research that's very much evolving, right now and in its infancy. So like, in terms of Carbon, I don't really have much to say in that front. We know that having a higher fiber diet is very important for a microbiome. So that's something I would watch, as you use Carbon. We don't necessarily provide you with, a fiber target, but from a health standpoint, I recommend, about 15 grams of fiber for every 1,000 calories you consume. That's a nice figure to help make sure you're getting enough fiber, which is good for your gut health. So that's really, on that front, that's really all I have to say around that. Again, like, food choices are up to you. So you're able to eat the foods you want to eat to hit those macro targets. So if you have specific preferences or reasons to not eat certain foods, you can do that. Oh, I missed Looks like I missed Mauricio. Sorry, I missed this. Let me get to it. Hi, I do CrossFit, strength training, Olympic lifting 5 days a week. I started a cut, but haven't seen any significant changes in 2 weeks. The only change I've noticed is my performance and feel a little tired during the day. My question is if you recommend pushing through the cut or if you're going back to maintenance can still help me with losing fat recomp, considering the amount of cardio hit from the CrossFit. Does it make sense? So 2 weeks, I'll say 2 weeks is barely any time. Your body's still hasn't really adapted to you being in the deficit yet. So I would definitely give it more time. A lot of, if you find you're not making progress after 4 weeks or something like that, then something needs to change. But like 2 weeks is not that much time, so I would give it a few more weeks. A lot of times, like you may be stagnant, and then all of a sudden, boom, you hit your body just like adapts, hits this new low. So I would stick it out for a few more weeks, and give your body a chance to adapt to the deficit that you are in. I think the worst thing to do is like jump back to maintenance after such a short period of time trying to give weight loss a chance. That's just gonna prevent you from making progress. There's people that do that often. They give weight loss a few weeks. Oh, this isn't working, and then they jump to another thing, and then give it another few weeks, jump to another thing. Like you have to stick with something for a good amount of time to be able to see progress at it. And so carbon is going to also make sure you're progressing. So let's say you continue to not make progress. Carbon is going to adjust your macros so that you do make progress. It's going to force your body to make progress. Now, some people might not like where they have to eat to see the progress that they want to see, but it is going to find exactly where you need to be eating to see the progress that you want. And so I would give it time, trust the coach, check in weekly and follow the macros, give it some more time, Mauricio, and see if that works. Also, if you're struggling, do reach out to our support. They're super helpful. You can reach them at support@joincarbon.com. They can help you work through these types of scenarios where you do need a little bit more of a human touch to figure out the next steps for you. And so they're there for that reason. You bet. All right. See, I answered this one already, and why is it still in here? And it looks like it's got 3 likes. So I'll answer it again. If someone isn't looking to change body composition, but is tracking food to determine food sensitivities, does this app help? Yes, it does, because Carbon has a built-in food tracker. So you can use just the food tracker aspect of Carbon to pick up on these things. Now, it's not going to help you pick out these sensitivities, but it's going to be a tool that you can use to track your diet, and then you'll know when you ate what, so you can kind of put the pieces together on your end. Now, with that said, Carbon is a paid app, and so there are many other free food trackers that you can use. Carbon really main benefit is the coaching side of things and the macro adjustments. And so if you aren't using that main portion of Carbon, which is like the check-ins, the macros, the adjustments, that type of thing, I would probably maybe just look for a free food tracker. We don't want to be, known as a food tracker, because, the huge benefit of Carbon isn't the food tracker. It's the coaching aspect, the macro adjustments based on your body. So you can use Carbon though. If a lot of people really like the app and tracker portion of the app, so you can use Carbon. You will just have to have a subscription to use the tracker. So yeah, it's up to you, but definitely could work for you in your situation as a tool. Focusing on fiber since joining Carbon has helped a ton. Any chance you can see fiber on the main screen? I don't know. I won't say never, but I think the main screen really should be focused on, the macros and the calories. It's it's easy to get to see the fiber every day. Just tap the eye icon on the diary and you pull up, you see how much fiber you're having right there. And so right now, I don't foresee us adding fiber onto the main screen, but if it's beneficial for enough people and we start, and especially if we start giving like fiber recommendations, then I can see putting it on the main diary page. But yeah, I guess the jury's still out there. Oops. Best advice for someone who has always been strictly a runner, 100% cardio, who is skinny fat, now trying to put on weight, but good, clean muscle mass. My best advice is to lift weights, obviously. That's going to be super important. Try to focus on getting as strong as possible in a moderate rep range, doing enough workouts throughout the week. Don't be afraid of gaining weight. I know a lot of people that are skinny fat are already like, well, I don't want to gain weight. I want to just recomp. Now, it's super hard to recomp a considerable amount by eating like at maintenance. So like, don't be afraid to use the weight gain setting or the reverse setting. As long as it's paired with proper weight training, you're going to be building muscle. It's really hard to know what's your weight is going to end up being once you add muscle mass to your frame. So like, I would just give it a year without even like worrying too much about what your weight is doing, and just focus on the gym, hitting it as hard as you can, making sure you're getting enough protein. And then, after a year of really doing that, look at where you're at and reevaluate at that point. But yeah, getting into the gym, lifting weights is going to be the first step for sure. But don't be afraid to gain weight in the process. All right. Let's see. Relationship between metabolic adaptation due to total weight loss and increases in BMR due to lean body mass gain. Specifically for those who are newbies and have a lot of fat to lose, do these two offset one another, or does one have a greater effect than the other? So BMR increases due to lean body mass are not nearly as big as people think. I think a lot of people think, oh, you gain some muscle, your maintenance calories are going to go through the roof. I mean, that's not necessarily the case. It does increase your maintenance calories, but not a crazy amount. Your metabolism, your BMR doesn't change a ton. It's more those other factors of like your NEAT and those types of things that change to a more significant degree, which is what like gets really affected by weight loss and dieting and stuff. So those other factors outside of BMR are what really change a lot. And so I would say, losing a huge amount of weight and, being in a calorie deficit, those are going to have a much larger impact on your maintenance calories than building some muscle. But, building muscle is always a good thing. So doing that, staying active, and keeping your metabolism healthy should be a priority. Like if you're doing a weight loss phase, you lose a lot of weight, you're going to want to recover your metabolism and kind of rebound in your metabolism from that weight loss phase. So reverse dieting is really important concept there. And so, yeah, that hopefully answers that question. Let's see. What's the problem with hitting calories and protein, but letting carbs and fat fluctuate? There's not necessarily a problem there. A lot of people do that with carbon and make amazing progress. By far the progress you're going to make by far is like mostly attributed to the calories and protein you're consuming. Now, the carb and fat ratio that you have is really going to have a lot more of an effect on your fluid balance, and which can throw some things off and kind of mask progress and that type of stuff. If you are eating varying levels of carbs and fats in your diet and that ratio is kind of jumping all over the place, there's a lot more chance for weight fluctuations in that. And you may be just retaining some water from eating more carbs than you're used to, and that masks whatever fat loss you're making. And so that's why we think consistency is super important in even in your macro ratios, because that's going to help just keep things more consistent with your weight. You're going to experience a lot less weight fluctuations. But in terms of like overall progress, you're going to make the same progress if you hit your calories and protein versus hitting all your macros. If you kind of take a step back after a certain period of time and look at what your true progress is. So if you're the type of person that doesn't like want to stress too much about hitting all your macros where they need to be, hitting calories and protein is an amazing like kind of compromise there, where it's quite a bit better than just hitting calories, but going all the way to hitting protein, carbs, and fat is like that next like kind of more expert level step, where like people that really want to have control of their weight, those types of things, that's where hitting all your macros is way more important. So hopefully that answers that question. In carbon, you set like, if you're not familiar with carbon, like you set your preference in terms of your carb and fat ratio. And so that preference stays the same throughout your time with carbon until you change it. But like it's good to keep that ratio the same in your diet, so that your body doesn't have a ton of surprises in terms of carb and fat ratio and really causing that weight fluctuation. And if you're concerned about weight fluctuations, give the new experimental feature a try, Trend Weight. You can do that in settings by turning on the Trend Weight experimental feature. That is going to fix a lot of the issues around weight fluctuations. And so definitely give that a try for the person that fluctuates. All right, we got a few more minutes here. I'll answer a few more questions. Gina, started a cut at 2,500 calories. 2 weeks later at 2,000, I've gained weight. How's this happening? Trying to track pretty diligently, and even if I underestimated, how could I have gained? Frustrated. So one, it sounds like you aren't tracking everything maybe, or you don't know exactly how much you're eating. Saying pretty diligently makes it seem like you may be good for a few days, but then you have a really bad day, and then you don't necessarily track on that day. Like those things can really impact your overall progress. Also, 2 weeks is not much time at all. I mean, you need to be more patient, in my opinion, and give it more time. And if you're using carbon, I don't even know if you're using the coaching aspect, but in carbon, it's going to adjust to find exactly where you need to be eating to see the progress that you want. And so hitting your macros and checking in and trusting the coach and following the process and being patient, if you do that, you are going to reach the goals that you want to reach and make the progress that you want. And so try not to get frustrated. It's only been 2 weeks. I think be more patient with it and give it time, and you will get to where you want to be. That's not the best answer, but it's the truth. I think that's what I think needs to happen. Let's see. My coach says we can end my reverse. Went from 1,500 to 2,300. Will 2,300 put me in a good spot to cut? I mean, it depends. Depends if that's, a good maintenance calories for your given weight. And it also depends on like how adaptive your metabolism is. So like some people can reverse to, super high numbers, but then when they go into a cut, they still have to bottom it out and to make progress in the cut. And so how you respond to a reverse diet is really up to your genetics and stuff. So like, but across the board, optimizing your metabolism as much as you can before you start a cut is going to be a good idea. And so that was that one. Are there actual meal plans to follow with recipes with carbon or a recommended resource for this to pair with carbon? So carbon doesn't provide meal plans. Meal plans are, a short-term solution for, a long-term problem. You need to figure out how to do it yourself without following a meal plan blindly, like because meal plans will work in the short term, but after a week, 2 weeks, you're going to need adjustments. You're going to not have access to that food because you're going out to eat here. And so following a meal plan is super strict in our opinion. And we want to provide you with macro targets and the tools to figure out how to make a diet work for you. And that's really going to help you long term, is figuring out how to find the foods that you need to eat to fit your macro targets. Once you have that skill, like, you can kind of go on autopilot mode. It's so easy after that. It's just getting over that initial hump of learning how to track macros and hit macro targets. But trust me, if you do that, you're going to set yourself up, for life in terms of knowing how to eat a balanced meal, knowing how to estimate calories and macros when you're traveling. All these things are super important. So like, no, we don't provide meal plans. With that said, we do provide a ton of macro-friendly recipes to give you ideas on our social media. So if you go to our Instagram page, there are a ton of macro-friendly recipes you can find there. I think that's where they're most useful, is like for ideas. But then, taking that recipe and fitting it into your macros and learning how to adjust it is going to be more important. So do check out our Instagram though. Some really great recipes up there. All right. I will answer, let's see, one more. Let's do one more question here. Let's go with this protein one. In a weight loss phase, I'm constantly over protein. If I go over in a day, should I eat less the following so my week lines up? I consider my daily protein a minimum at the moment. Protein number, a minimum at the moment. Okay, so protein is a little different than carbs and fats, where like there really isn't a storage mechanism for protein, the protein in your diet, whereas like with carbs and fats, there is. And so really, you do need to hit, you don't want to necessarily be under on any given day. You want to make sure you're hitting your protein target every day. If you go over on a given day, I don't think that's a problem at all, but I wouldn't adjust other days protein to be lower. Just make sure you're hitting the right calories. And so that's really more important. And like looking at your protein number as a minimum, that can work. And carbon also provides like a pretty good range for protein. So if you constantly find yourself going over protein, adjust that default value to be closer to what you kind of naturally find yourself eating. And so if you're constantly finding yourself going over on protein, bump that up, go to settings, diet preference, increase that protein. And then, yeah, just try to make sure you kind of hit your protein target every single day, because that's super important. One strategy that I use is what I do is I look at my total protein, and then I divide it evenly between the number of meals I eat per day. So if I eat four meals a day, I'll take that total protein divided by 4. Then I have like a meal protein target that I'm aiming for. I think breaking protein down to like having a target for yourself on the meal level is super useful, because a lot of people, if you have a low protein meal, it's really hard to like make that up, and people struggle to hit their protein. And so making sure at any point in time during the day you're not behind on protein, I think is important. So take that total protein, divide it by the number of meals you eat, and then set that in your mind, have that in your mind as like, okay, I need to make sure I get at least this much protein in each meal. I find that super, super helpful. And really building your meal around a protein source is useful as well. And so when I think about like, okay, what am I going to eat for this meal? I first think about what's my protein source. And then I build the rest of the meal around that. So if you kind of have that priority in your head of like, okay, this is going to be the protein source, what goes good with that protein source, then you build the rest of the meal around that. I think that's super helpful. But yeah, back to your question though, like constantly over on protein, and that's fine. Just adjust the diet preference up to be more in line with what you have, and aim to hit it daily. So, oh, great. Well, that's going to be it for today's Q&A. Appreciate everybody tuning in. If you are not a Carbon user, do check us out. Give Carbon a try. It's very affordable nutrition coach for you, macro coach. A lot of people spend hundreds of dollars a month on a coach that does exactly the same thing that Carbon does. And so if you want macro targets, if you want to adjust them based on your progress weekly, and check into, the digital coach, give Carbon a try. So many people find it helpful. If you do find it helpful, we appreciate leaving a review in the app stores. That helps us out a ton. We love you guys. Thank you so much. And we will be around next month to do another Q&A. We do these every single month. And so be sure to tune in next month for our next Q&A. And I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we will see y'all later. All right.